Hi everybody, I'm Fernando Pereira from Brazil, and today I will present Cadential refunctionalization over Binchois tenor Comme, femme, desconfortée. New observations on the double cantus firmus technique in Giselin's inviolata integra et casta as Maria, resulting from a postdoc research I have done in Boston University, supervised by Dr. Joshua Rifkin. This scholarship was financed by Brazilian institution CAPES in partnership with São Paulo State University Institute of Arts, where I'm a member of the research group Music Theories, headed by Dr. Marcos Pulpo Nogueira. I am currently located at São Paulo University in a new postdoc research, and I'm grateful to all these institutions by supporting my research. Double cantus firmus is a common technique used in the late 15th century by composers such as Ockeghem, Josquin, and Richefort. It has been studied in a broad sense by Edgar Sparks, and in some case studies by Kevin Moll, Jess Rodin, and John Mewson, among others. Double cantus firmus techniques include from simple plainchant canon to the coupling of multiple voices from sacred or secular songs as the antiphon Inviolata integra et casta and Binchois chanson Comme, femme, desconfortée, of which chant and tenor were intertwined by Giselin. Inviolata also inspired other composers in musical borrowing, some of them writing motets up to 8 voices by means of canon techniques, as pointed out by Stephen Rice in a 2007 article on inviolata motets. Another group of inviolata pieces are written over a single cantus firmus inviolata, as for Isaac's 5-voice motet detailed by Julie Comme in her 2011 article Composing Imitative Counterpoint Around the Cantus Firmus. Among others, composers inspired by inviolata also borrowed Binchois tenor Comme, femme exclusively for single cantus firmus compositions, except by Giselin, the only one to use this tenor in double cantus firmus technique, combined with antiphons Regina Coeli or Inviolata integra et casta, in a sort of contrapuntal challenge. Rothenberg studied semantic associations for the texted Comme, femme pieces with sacred love and Marian devotion in his 2004 article Angels, Archangels, and a Woman in Distress, but with little room for musical analysis on compositional processes. So I decided to investigate this series of compositions over the tenor Comme, femme by cadential analysis, as a means to correlate these pieces with a common cantus firmus. Some results about Isaac's and Agricola's pieces were already presented at Brazilian conferences last year, and today I will present new advances in this project concerning Giselin's Inviolata integra et casta. In this piece, Giselin merged the 10-lined antiphon Inviolata with the tenor borrowed from Binchois' chanson Comme, femme, desconfortée, based on a 6-line rondo. In the Liber Usualis, the antiphon Inviolata occurs in mode 6, divided into melodic fragments ending either in the 3rd degree or in the finalis. Both Rothenberg and Comme suggested that Giselin transposed the chant up to a 5th to use it as a paraphrased cantus firmus together with Binchois' tenor Comme, femme, therefore considering that the chant occurred in its untransposed form in early sources. The tenor Comme, femme, in turn, would be borrowed by Giselin from the Mellon chansonnier, according to Wolfgang Ramm. It can be fragmented into 6 phrases towards cadences on degrees, 5, 1, 2, 1, 3, and 1, along with some other internal cadences. In the chanson, each verse line ends with a rest in the superiors, determining a split point in the tenor phrases. In the first two phrases, the tenor performs cadences involving the superiors in the fifth and first degrees respectively, by means of a downward whole tone motion, also known as tenorisms. This is a terminology advocated by Bernhard Meyer and will be used from now on. The borrowed tenor will be used faithfully by Gieseling in terms of reconfiguration and absence of rests, similar to what Agricola did previously in compositions over the same tenor. During my research, I have noted that in these Agricola's instrumental-like pieces, phrase-ending cadences are similar to the chanson model, just like in Comme, femme, 1, where the first cadence is driven to the fifth degree. Gieseling, otherwise, wasn't able to align melodic clauses for each of the double cantus firmus phrase endings, such that they were disengaged as in the first phrase due to counterpoint restrictions. Thus, the tenor could no longer affect a cadence with the superiors at this point, giving room for a syncopated bassus to emphasize a closure in C, even with the superiors evading the octave. Despite this, the expected closure with engaged endings is accomplished right in the next phrase, even without a complete resolution. Now, one can see that the superiors bearing the inviolata melody is in a transposed mode 6, but it remains uncertain if the model penchant was really transposed from F by Gieseling or if it was already transposed to C. Some early sources for this chant suggest a prevalence of the transposed mode 6 in French and Belgian antiphonarists, while the untransposed chant is found in British and German remnant sources. One of the French sources differs from the others on the second inviolata phrase, the first note placed 2 degrees down. Even in the Libero Usuales, the second phrase begins with the finales note, as it occurs in the Antiphonarium Massiliense, evidently in the transposed mode because of its F clef. However, in the Antiphonare à l'usage de l'Église, quia as affecta begins with A instead of C, and what a surprise to see that Gieseling makes use of the same lower note. Moreover, a textual interchange between chant phrases 5 and 6 in this source is still another concordance with Gieseling's setting. So it could be argued that Gieseling's source for inviolata came from a distinct tradition, may be connected with these French sources. In order to merge these two melodies, Gieseling abducted only a few notes from Binchois' tenor Comme, femme. Native articulation points in the tenor were used to anchor the inviolata phrase endings, therefore guiding the addition process. On the third phrase, anchoring occurred next to an internal point of articulation in anticipation to establish a Phrygian cadence. The merging technique proceeds until the fourth phrase, admitting both engaged and disengaged closures. As the piece needed more of the secular cantus firmus to support all the sacred one, Giselin overlapped the second note on the fifth tenor phrase with the first note of the beginning in a cyclic procedure. However, inviolata phrases are driving to the finales on phrases 5a and 6b, and for the sake of counterpoint, the anchoring was displaced forward by one tenor note. This picture is reverted on phrases 7c and 8d, where clause combinations are similar to those of the previous phrases C and D. As the natural sequence of tenor phrases is resumed, a prominent cadence articulates the vocative O benigna, followed by weak articulation for O regina, and by no clause combination for O Maria. This must be partially due to the absence of vocatives O regina, O Maria in some sources for this antiphon, since it corresponds to a melodic repetition, as represented in the Liber Usualis. On the other hand, this double anchoring could serve only for two of these vocatives, the third one being pushed forward to an inactive cantus firmus zone. As we compare the phrases all together, it becomes clear that the role of the tenorizans is corrupted at disengaged closures. It becomes defunctionalized at these points, and some of them will be displaced by means of functionalization in the neighborhood. Beyond these situations, the tenor can still be refunctionalized with any other voices, so that its role as a cantus firmus, similar to the original tenor, may change at distinct points due to cause or consequence. The original tenor has a functionalization pattern in the chanson derived from its interaction with the other voices, and it will be depicted by means of rounded rectangles for tenor clauses, and rectangles for potential cadences. Rounded rectangles will be solid for a downward step motion, otherwise it will be dashed. When tenor clauses are moving towards the first degree in a cadence, labels tenorizans or cantizans can be applied to them. Colors will denote pitches for tenor clauses in complete cadences. The role of the tenor clause depends upon the polyphonic constitution of the cadence. A complete cadence has doubled resolution tones, as for an octave, and will be depicted by a solid rectangle in the same color of the tenor clause. Depending on its resolution tone, the cadence will be perfect, Frisian, or not inflected. As the tenor Comme femme is refunctionalized in new compositions, its role in a cadence may change due to pitch alteration, consisting of two processes. Addition of a polyphonic double resolution in another pitch than that of the tenor clause, or evasion towards a lower pitch. This process will be depicted by a solid or a dashed rectangle, respectively, in a distinct color from that of the tenor clause, and will be referred to as added or evaded cadences. Tenor clauses derived from these altered cadences will assume roles as distinct as the altisms and the evaded forms of tenorisms, cantisms, and altisms. Other progressions may or may not be a cadence, but they will be considered as refunctionalizations, as for one identified by Dr. Peter Urquhart as the B-flat close cadence, which prevents a C cadence to be perfect. In order to confront Binchois and Giselin's pieces, a common template was developed to fit both chanson and motet sections over the same tenor. The observed tenor clauses for both sections of the motet were correlated in a final table to certify which clauses or cadences will be similar or not to the model chanson. As one can see, for each of the Binchois Comme femme phrases, there is at least one concordance with its corresponding Giselins in violata phrases, suggesting that Giselin could have been adherent to the cadential profile of the model, even in the presence of so many refunctionalized cadences. Thank you.